And we're back. This is like, I didn't have anyone else for today's episode, so I figured I'd just get RJ back in here. No, I'm kidding. What's up, brother? How are you?
What's up, pal, man? Good to have you. Good to be back again, I should say. Thanks for having me back.
Bro, listen, friends are allowed on here anytime, and you are a friend. I was going to make a joke there, but no, I truly value our friendship, and we've gotten to know each other now over the last few years. It's been a lot of fun, but last Monday, I think it was last Monday, I called you out of the clear blue. And,
so random.
And it was, but I do that. I've talked about it before in a podcast. I love calling at least one person a week that I don't talk to regularly just to say hello and check in. And if I have 5 extra minutes of my day, which everybody does, I like to find somebody in my phone. I scroll through my phone, or I see something on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, and it makes me think of that person. And I'm like, you know what? I got 5 free minutes. Let me call. You and I ended up having a 45-minute conversation over coffee, which was awesome. And I said, you know what? You need to come on the show with me, and let's have morning coffee. And that's exactly what we're doing. I got my Yeti right here ready to go. You got your I Love Jobs mug.
Got it. Locked in.
Bro, I love jobs.
Facts.
The fire service is so good. And this is kind of like morning coffee, right? So this is literally just chit chat, and we're going to go down a couple roads, I think, that we're not even planning to go down. But my point is that we're always talking about the bad, the differences, the things that annoy the hell out of us, the way the generations have changed, the job's not the way it used to be, my volunteer house sucks, my career firehouse sucks, all this stuff. But bro, it's still so good.
I know. And we talked about this last time, man. Like,
I know.
And what so things don't go exactly how we plan or exactly our way, but at the end of the day, we still have the best job in the world. We still have the ability to go out here. We still have the ability to make a difference. We still have the ability to learn and educate ourselves and our profession now more than ever. And you've been in the fire service longer than me, but now more than ever, you can go to any state in the United States of America to get away from home and go learn more about the job.
You have more opportunity today than ever before.
Ever.
Yeah.
And okay, you want to hear Jeremy, but you're not going to be able to make it to Tennessee. Well, Jeremy be in Maine. You can go anywhere to go see these people that are fire service leaders, fire service instructors, people who are bringing energy to the job. We have the ability to go anywhere and see them. I mean, the fire service is in a really good place. And don't get me wrong, man. There's days I have my moments where I'm not in a good place either, man. Just things happen, or today wasn't a good day, and we talked about that one before. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you gotta pick up and keep trucking, man. You know what I mean?
I wonder. I think about this, and I talk about opportunity a lot, and I say that we have more opportunity than ever before, and that's on the upside, right? So the upside is I'm not happy where I am. I have opportunity to see how it's being done elsewhere, or a culture that is more in line with me, or I'm looking for a mentor and I don't have one within my own 4 walls. And you're able to now more than ever find something more because you're not held to your zip code anymore, right?
Right.
But on the downside of that, and this is maybe part of the conversation we should explore, because we never talk about this side of it, is because of more opportunity, we're starting to suffer there too. Because now it's, I know what it looks like outside of my department. So now it makes me more disgruntled or pissed off because I see sunshine and rainbows over there, or what I perceive to be sunshine and rainbows somewhere else. And so it sours your opinion about where you are now. Or the fact that, if you didn't know what the outside world was doing and you were within your department, that's what you know. And you only know what you know. Today, we know more than ever. And so maybe that's part of the undoing of what we have in front of us. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I do, but I don't have to agree with it. So
please don't.
So check it, right? I'm that guy you're talking about, right? So here's the deal, right? Yeah, you go to these places and you might see other people doing these things that your department's not doing. So be the change you want your department to be, right? So I'm gonna be honest with you. Like where I work at was not on the map 15, 20 years ago. Nobody was talking about that place, right? And now I'm like, all right, man, let me find other good people that I work with, and let's all bond together to make our department noticeable. We got so many good guys and girls in Frederick County Fire Rescue, right? And it takes all of these people to bond together to make your department be what it is. We never had all these online platforms where you can go and see what people are doing running calls. We never had these training platforms. We never had a conference. You know what I mean? Like, so like it takes one person from that department to say, you know what, I want to be the change. And then you just got to find the other people who are like you that want to help your department grow and change. You can
But you're
be
in a big department, bro. You got hundreds and hundreds of people to choose from. What if I'm in a department stuck with the same 3 guys every shift, or the same volunteer firehouse that only has 12 active volunteers? Like how do those people?
There's gotta be always one more. I mean, there's always a reason why people got into this to begin with, right? And so sometimes you got to find out what made that person go this way where they're not feeling it anymore. Because, I even said this last night. I was at the volley house last night, right? Nobody wakes up and be like, yo, I want to go suck today, right? Everybody's like, yo, I want to do something, right? And so like people join the fire service because they have an ambition to want to help, want to serve. It's when they get there, then they don't have somebody to guide them in the right direction of training, or guide them in the right direction of station etiquette or what they need to be doing. So that's how these people go sideways. And essentially, you got to be the person who's like, no, I don't want these group of people that way. I want these people this way. And I want to take the people who are like that. Everybody has it in them. Sometimes you just got to dig deep to bring it out of them. Sometimes people have been running that way for so long that they don't even realize that they've been wrong for so long. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does 100%. And I would agree with you on a lot of fronts there, but I always like to take the other side too and look at, you know, the other side of the conversation is, you said before I go there, I want to talk about that station etiquette. See, the fire service is more than just going to fires. And in fact, going to fires is a very small portion of what this whole thing is. Right. And we talk about it being a lifestyle. If you're in it for the right reasons, it tends to consume you. And, you know, talking with you and knowing you, I mean, even just looking at your background, like, you know, you're into it, right? There's books there in your background because you want to better yourself. You're reading on your own time. You know, you have documents and things behind you, conference passes. Like, this is like sizing up somebody in the first 5 seconds of talking to you on the podcast. So I understand your background and who you are, but so much of the fire service is not just going to calls, and we seem to sell that as the pretense of what we do, and we don't talk about the unglorified stuff, or the stuff that matters almost just as much, maybe sometimes even more, which is that station etiquette, the culture, the requirement of, it's not just answering the alarm. There's more things that have to go into this. It's the respect of it. It's the understanding of those that came before us. It's the foundation that was laid. It's all of that, right? How do we do a better job? Because I think we're falling down on that. You know, it's easy to point the finger and blame and say, like, you know, these guys don't get it. They don't come in here. They don't go to details anymore. Yeah. They don't do the picnics. They don't do funerals. They don't do this. They don't sweep. They don't think it's their responsibility to clean a toilet. Like, all that shit. How do we do better at that?
We have to take ownership of it, bro. And so, like, that's me. I feel like if somebody's, and maybe this is probably one of my bad traits about me, right? I feel like if somebody can't do something, or somebody doesn't know something, or somebody doesn't perform a certain way, that's my fault. And that could be my bad trait, right? Like, I feel like it's my fault. And especially if it's something that I do know how to do, something that I do know how to explain, it's something that I do have the ability to teach, it's my fault, right? And there's got to be a fine line, right? There's got to be a line where say, hey, man, I've taught this person this, or I showed this person this many times, and they're still not getting it. Well, then that person's just not fitting for it. But if we have to look at it and be like, yo, man, we never really showed that person this. And so they don't know that. We can't be mad at that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that the biggest thing is taking ownership of it. And there's got to be some point where you can say, all right, this is my responsibility, and now I can take this responsibility, and I can delegate this responsibility to another person that I can trust to get this done the way that I would deem is quality. And then you can now release that responsibility and find another responsibility and know that that last one is being handled by somebody that you can trust. I don't know, man. And sometimes I always struggle with this when I travel and teach and I sit down and I talk to people and I hear these things. And I sometimes I feel like some people work or volunteer in these horror shows, man. And I'm like, I don't know what that's like. I won't allow that to happen anywhere that I'm at. And honestly, when we talked about this the last time we did a recording, I'm a detail officer.
Yeah.
I have to take that mentality everywhere I go. You know what I mean? I think if you have to take ownership of it, bro.
Does it get exhausting?
Oh my gosh, it is.
It is.
You know what it is? I did a podcast with Polikoff on his podcast recording years ago about mentorship. Mentorship, if done properly, is exhausting. It is literally taking another kid to my 3 kids and having a 4th kid because I have to put my life into that person too. But I want it done the right way. I want that person to be a well-knowledged firefighter. I want that person to be a respected firefighter. I want them to know the ins and outs of the job to a point where I'm like, all right, I've given you enough to succeed. Now it's on you to take what I've given you and go be your own person. Not RJ. And that's funny because a lot of times we're like, oh, that's a little RJ over there. But I give you enough to be your own person and thrive. And I'm very proud of the 2 guys that I have mentored on the job who have become firefighter of the year, now teaching at the academy, or slowly getting into teaching at the academy, taught at the conference for the first time. Yeah, man, but it comes from having a mentor. It is exhausting, but you got to look at the reward for it, man. We've now produced another good quality person to the American Fire Service.
You know, for a very long time in my fire service life, I don't think I had a mentor. I don't think I had somebody that I was like, I wanted to emulate and be like. There were people that influenced some of my ways about me or what I wanted to be. But I don't think I recognized the importance of having a mentor because I was that pompous young firefighter that knew everything. I was a young officer in chief in my volunteer department at the time. I couldn't be told anything because I already knew it all. And only over the years have I come to realize that I was an absolute piece of shit early on. And I just didn't value, I truly didn't value what others could give me. And I didn't allow myself to open up and accept it or even recognize that there were those around me that were doing it better or had a different perspective, the way they handled themselves, the way they carried themselves. I couldn't be told, and I couldn't be bothered to take the time to learn. Now I have incredible mentors, and I've recognized the need for that. And I would say to the younger guys that are out there that have 5-10 years, even younger than that, it's never too late to find somebody. It's never too late to understand that you don't have all the answers, you know? We always talk about that 5 going on 25, right? And it's you know, and I think that guys that are like that don't open themselves up to the humility of saying they don't know it all and that they are looking and thirsting for somebody to lead and mentor them. I was one of those kids, man. I was one of those kids for a long time that couldn't be told anything more than I already knew. And now at 47 years old, in the fire service and in life as a husband and father, as a business owner, I've come to realize you need mentors in all of those lanes. Yeah. And you need to allow yourself to open up to accept them. And you can only do that when you're ready for it. And you have to allow yourself to be mentored as well, right?
But and for sure, man. And honestly, you don't even realize it. I didn't realize it. But even the ones that we don't even look at as mentors, the people that we look at as the people we don't respect, they're mentoring you in a way that you don't even know you're being mentored.
True.
Right? I've had some pretty bad officers in my career. And I'm talking about both career and volunteer world. I've seen a bunch of different ways people manage people. And even the bad ones are like teaching you something.
Yes.
Because they're teaching you something for how you would do or how you would manage when you get the opportunity to become the guy in charge. I knew,
or how you don't want
or
to,
how you don't want to be, exactly, right? I knew, and I this is just my personality. This is how I am. But I told people from day one, I want to be a leader of this organization. I do. That's my goal. I want to be a leader of this organization. Now, with that being said, I have to learn all of these traits of good leaders. I have to learn these traits of bad leaders. I have to learn some of these traits of good leaders that maybe not necessarily are the way they conduct business is how it should be run, but maybe that's just how we view the person, right? And so I've learned all of these different things to make my own way of conducting business. And not everybody agrees with how I do business either. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, man, all of these people, good and bad, are teaching us something. It's a matter of if we want to open our eyes to see it. I was the same exact guy you're talking about, the younger version of him, right? So I moved into the firehouse at 18 years old. I'm running more calls than mostly anybody runs in the American Fire Service. I run at a firehouse that runs 15,000 calls a year, and I'm there every day. So what are you going to tell me about the fire service at 18 years old? You know what I mean? Times how many years I lived there, right? Let's say I lived there for 5 years, right? So let's just say 5 years of living there, that's 10 years. You just double that time. That's 10 years. I'm running on an average 2,000 to 3,000 calls myself a year. I'm not listening to somebody who come in every third day tell me what to do. You know what I mean? And that was that mentality that I had as a young fireman, not open-minded to listening, not open-minded to understanding and comprehending that sometimes people do know a little bit more than you, and it's okay, but you don't realize that at a young age. But it takes a person like you, it takes a person like me to sit down with a young person and be like, I was you.
I'm watching so many. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is not a blanket statement. This is not a broad stroke by any means, but I've seen a lot of kids that just aren't opened to a different perspective or point of view. And not even kids, just people in the fire service in general. Guys my age, kids that are younger, maybe even guys older. Like, some people just don't understand or value the importance of that. And I think it's those people that will never grow. Like, you know, when you only have what you're willing to have in front of you and you're not willing to try anything different or open up your mind, or, you know, when you paint yourself into a corner, that's all you're ever going to have.
It's tough, man. That's the American Fire Service. We don't like change, period. And that's how it's been. And honestly, it takes people like us as fire service leaders to try to break that. I'll be honest with you. I struggled with that myself. I struggle with you talking about like the fire service leaders, because I don't see it that I don't see myself in that realm. What I do here out of here, bro.
I'm dead. No, hold on. Let me explain.
Okay.
And I appreciate that.
Okay.
I truly do. Right. And I know that I do have influence, and I know that I do reach across and talk and touch a lot of people with my words in our platform. I get that, and I appreciate that. But that's done in a super humble way, that all I'm willing to do is step out of the protection of who I am and put it on the line. I just told everyone 10 minutes ago in this podcast that I was a piece of shit when I was a younger fireman. How many guys are willing to have those real conversations? Because what I find out and what I've come to realize on this podcast of mine is 100% transparent and authentic, and I have to tell it the way it is. And a lot of it is self-reflection on me and my career. And I'm only getting better because I'm willing to put it all out there now. A lot of people won't do that. A lot of people can't do that. And for me, it's made my process better. It's made my journey 1,000 times better. I'm much more accountable today. And if I'm willing to tell those stories, I can tell you firsthand the amount of messages I get from people that appreciate my candidness. Listen, if if I want to stand out there and talk in my program, I talk about the time I got punched in the face in 7th grade. And it was the most humbling experience of my life. But I didn't come to realize that until 20, 25 years later in life, that I realized that I was the big kid on the school bus. I was the bully, and this kid knocked me out, man. I had to walk around with a badge of disgrace in my face for 3 months with that black guy. But that was a pivotal moment in my life that I only realized later in life how important that was for me. And it's moments like that. But we have to be able to talk about that. A lot of people won't talk about those things. And so if I do that, then it opens the door. Maybe others will. And so, for me, that's where I think I fit into all this. There are people out there that have a much, much grandioso career than I ever will, that have more knowledge and experience than I ever will. But I just talk about humility and talk about being a good person, and it's coupled with the love of the fire service. But, you
ready for me to answer your question?
I guess.
I'm going to answer your question.
Go ahead.
The answer to your question is people like you. Who is willing to stand in front of people and say, I've made these mistakes? Who are people that are willing to stand in front of the fire service and say, yo, I was a piece of shit? And the only people, to answer your question, the only people to do that is, like I said, fire service leaders who are people like you. Bro, fun fact, doctors hang out with doctors, lawyers hang out with lawyers, and leaders hang out with leaders, right? So that's the answer to your question. Those are the people who are willing to do that. I'm willing to do that. You're willing to do that. We are years apart from each other. We are in 2 different states. We come from 2 different kinds of departments. But the similarity between us both is we are both willing to stand in front of people on whatever our platform is. My platform is the training ground. Your platform is the internet, social media, the podcast waves, and the training ground. You have multiple platforms, right? But amongst all of the platforms you have, you're willing to stand in front of people and say, I was that guy. You came to Frederick, Maryland. You did a presentation on Bridging the Gap, and you stood in front of hundreds of people, and you do this presentation everywhere. You stand in front of hundreds of people to say, I was that guy, right? There are, and we're slowly getting down to that point of where we talked about what we wanted to talk about. People who are willing to stand in front of people and say, I fucked up, or I didn't do this right, or I've been that guy. And that's what I was saying earlier about being that guy to tell somebody else, hey man, I see where you're headed. I was there. I'm trying to not let you be to that spot. I don't want you to be that guy, because sometimes you may not have that mentor that can see where you're heading and pull you out of it to put you on the right track. A lot of us didn't. I was that guy too. I was an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid. What are you going to tell a 19-year-old kid who's running more calls than anybody else in the firehouse how we going to pack this hose? You ain't fucking pulling it. I am. So, you know what I mean? That's just one of those things. And I get it, man. But to answer your question, other leaders.
All right, let's move on. So listen, I appreciate all of that. I really do. I value our friendship and so on. But yeah, I mean, okay, fine. I'm good. We'll move on there.
I'm your friend, man. And you know what? I'm your friend. And honestly, everybody listening now don't want to sit here and hear me just to agree with you. And that makes the podcast boring anyway. But the fact of the matter is, like, I can tell you straight up. And the one thing I love about our friendship is I can tell you straight up and you would hear me out. And you do the same, right? We had some great conversations over the coffee the last week when you called me. And it sometimes puts me on track too. So like that's one of the good things about our friendship, bro.
For sure. And this is why, like, when we start this conversation today and I say the fire service is good, it's because I've been able to make these relationships. And that's what I challenge people with. It's like, this whole first half of this episode is talking about accountability and putting yourself out there and opening yourself up for mentorship is super, super important. And the fire service allows that. And if you're willing to give yourself to it and you're willing to be honest with yourself, because humility is a funny thing, right? And accountability. If you don't accept your actions, you make an error on the fire ground, what do you do with it? Do you bury it and just pretend that it didn't happen so that next time, hopefully it won't happen again? Or do you go back and you train and you practice on it? Do you admit your fault? Do you admit you didn't mask up fast enough, that you didn't pop that door quick enough? You know, all those things. What do you do with it? That's the humility and the accountability. And so a lot of people will shy away from it. They won't hold themselves accountable, and then they never move forward with it, right? They just hope that they never get put in that position again. The problem is you will. And the fire service is super humbling for the most experienced firemen. It's super humbling. And so you have to do your due diligence to get good at it and to be your best. I still have a long way to go, right?
We all do.
We don't, yeah. That's exactly it. And you just have to be honest and open about that, and then understand that there's other people that have advanced their career past you, and allow yourself to be open to what they have to tell you and what they can show you. And that is how you allow people in to mentor you. And if you allow that, I promise you, you will have tremendous growth. But if you allow yourself to stay closed off and you know better than everyone, there's going to be zero growth in this job for you.
100%. And that's the biggest thing, is understanding when we have to realize that.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me ask you about instructors. You guys, you're coming up on your second conference you're going to be doing down in Frederick County this year, which is exciting for you. You guys did it last year. I was honored to be a part of it. Teaching and training is important for you. Capital Fire Training. You know, that's your platform with your guys, and you guys are out there teaching all over. And so on. Instructors, you must get a lot of conversation about people that are looking to teach and instruct, the hands-on, the lecture, all of it. It's in an interesting place, I think, today in the fire service. No?
Yeah, it is very much so. First, before I even get into that, man, I personally want to thank you for.
Can you stop with this shit and let's just move on?
It's the right thing to do, man. It's the right thing to do. You helped contribute to our conference. This was the first time we ever did this. A lot of people took a leap of faith in believing in us for the conference. A lot of people put themselves out there. I mean, again, this is not something that's been done in Maryland and the DC metro area ever. And so to put that in front of the world to see, and people, and not just locally, people all over took a leap of faith on us, right? We had people from all over the country travel to Frederick, Maryland. We had 11 different states present for our conference. A lot of people took a leap of faith in us. And because you allowed us to also use your platform to promote the conference, as well as coming and helping with our conference, it sent a huge message. But and I know that because last year we had 20 people apply to be instructors to the conference. This year we had close to 100.
Wow.
And so, you know, there's a huge, I guess, wave of people who want to help contribute to the fire service. And so, yeah, there's a huge, you know, place right now for fire service instructors and leaders. And
but do we? So here's my concern, and this is what I worry about. Right? Is, you know, conferences now are doing like casting calls, right? And they're like, hey, you know, if you have a program and, you know, you want to share it, we'd love to hear about you, hear from you, because it's impossible to know everybody. And there's the same 50 names that everybody recognizes and understands over the last 25 years that teach in the fire service. But we're at an interesting point right now, I think, in the fire service, where we're having a lot of new people emerge as the next generation of influencers and fire service instructors. Because what happens is you're going to age out. Like if you haven't ridden on a fire truck in 25 years, you know, 30 years, at some point you're going to have to pass the baton on and allow others to pick up where you left off.
Sure.
And, you know, and that's the thing. It's firefighting's perishable. Like, you know, the messages are there. Don't get me wrong. Like, John Norman, right? His Instagram is amazing. He was on my podcast, and it was an incredible conversation. And that guy shares knowledge every single time he puts a letter on paper, right? And pen to paper. It's just knowledge bombs and his experience. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But he's also one guy that understands and knows that the next generation needs to continue on, right? And so he's mentoring the next generation while sharing his message and experiences. But he recognizes the importance of that next generation coming in, and he's giving props. He's giving a nod to those next people.
Yeah.
We need to do that. So we're at a really interesting time right now where I think people are jockeying for getting recognition in their training programs and who they are and their message. What I worry about is who's legit.
Yeah, big time, man. And that's hard, dude, because you know, everybody feels like they're an instructor, and I get asked this all the time. People will send us messages, hey, when do I know is the right time to teach? Or I want to be an instructor with your group of guys, and what do I need to do? Or what do I need to do to be an instructor with a training cadre, right? And there's a lot to it, man. And there's a few things that I think are, and then this is just my opinion, I think are what makes a valuable instructor. First and foremost, you have to be able to back it up. You have to be able to have experience. You know, you can't go out here and teach a skill that you may have done one time, or teach a skill that you learned from somebody else, right? I'll be honest with you. The best way I can explain it is, I am on paper a fire service investigator. I had to take fire service investigation in order to promote to lieutenant, right? I can't be out here teaching fire service investigations. I've never investigated a fire. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that. And one of the biggest things is it's hard to figure out who's who. And you know, I felt like this years ago, and I felt like in order for me to be out here and teach, I need to show people that these skills that I'm talking about are things that I have done or experienced. And it's not just like a look at me, this is what I do kind of thing, but it's the show that I have made these mistakes on the job, which is why I'm here to be able to teach you how to do it the right way. Watch this video. This is me making the mistake, or this is the mistake that we've made as an organization that we were able to come back from. A lot of times people, they see the cool part of the hands-on training, being able to just be out and teach. And sometimes people really actually use it for their own ego to lift themselves up, to say, I am that guy, right? But you gotta, and I'll tell people, anybody listening, if you really want to be an instructor, there's a bunch of things you have to be able to do. One, you need to be able to say, I made these mistakes. You have to be able to say, I messed this up multiple times till I got it, right? You have to be able to say, listen, man, I am willing to share my experience in front of anybody, right? You can't say, I'm only willing to talk to these 20 people from this small town USA, but I'm not comfortable standing in front of a group of people from big town USA, right? You got to be able to say your message in front of any and everybody. And sometimes people clam up when they get to that position. You know what I mean? And then humility, man. You gotta be humble, man. Some of these people, and I try to remind myself that sometimes you could be like, oh, I've done this, I've done that, but sometimes people don't want to hear that. And so those are like some of the three main things that I think you got to have in order to be, I would say, recognized as a fire service instructor or leader. Does that make sense?
100%. And I want to double down on a couple things you said by backing them up with a couple other words. I was writing them down as you were talking. Self-awareness, right? Like that speaks directly to what you're saying. That, you know, you have to know who you are and what your fire service career has been. And you have to have an honest conversation with yourself to admit that, like, when you lay down at night, you have to know that if you just taught that evening, what you taught about was experience and not theory.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Theory is, I've read about it, I've heard about it, I've talked about it, I've seen it, I haven't done it. Right? Yeah. There is some of that, right? There is some of that today. There's more of that today than ever, right? Because we have more opportunity today to learn and to educate and to see things, right? The next one, fit in. You got to know where you fit in.
Yeah.
And this is that whole positioning thing that, like, Mickey talks about a lot, and I just love when he goes down those roads, and I love having those conversations with him.
Me too.
Because the humility aspect of it is because you know where you fit in. And I've come to really and truly understand that it's important to be the dumbest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to listen and not to speak. And I talk a lot, but believe it or not, I listen more than I speak. I listen in every room that I'm in. I promise you that, because that is how I learn, right? So you got to know where you fit in. And then the last one, patience. It comes with time. You can't rush it. I've seen some incredible guys. I can't even tell you how many people reach out to me to try to get my attention or the attention of National Fire Radio's platform because they want to promote or push their agenda. I fucking hate that.
Yeah. And in person too. A lot of people will do that in person. But I will tell you this, man, and I don't want what we're saying to scare off anybody who might be interested in being an instructor. There is a place for some younger guys and girls. There is a place for those 2 and 3 year people. And I'll talk about it personally, my experience with Capital Fire Training, because one of our guys you had on your show, Trevor. Trevor is an amazing guy. And Trevor was the youngest guy that we brought on Capital Fire Training. We brought Trevor on Capital Fire Training as a instructor at 4 years. And the reason why we brought Trevor on as an instructor at 4 years is because there's something for everybody from somebody. And what I mean by that is this, right? Sometimes there is a young person who's taking a class who might want to hear from another young person. There's somebody who is a young person taking a class who might want to hear from an older person, right? So there's something that everybody brings to the table. The one good thing about Trevor, and I'm not trying to boost Trevor, but I'm just explaining to people who are listening. Trevor was, or not at the time we took him on, was a young guy who was not afraid to also say, I don't know that. I don't have experience in that, and I've never done that before. But this, I do have experience in this, and I have learned this over the years, and this is what I'm going to share is how I've learned to do this as a young guy. We don't have people in the fire service who are willing to actually say, I don't know something. And that's what makes this trajectory of instructors kind of, now we have to vet everybody because, hey, at the end of the day, man, anybody can get out here and say they have experience in something or teach it, and do they really? Does that make sense? And so, you know, you got to teach people now, you got to vet these people, and it makes the service hard to do because you got to figure out who this person is, where their experience level is, what have they actually done or experienced. You know, people used to give us shit all the time, Jeremy, Capital Fire Training. Why do you have 2 instructors to teach a forcible entry class, right? And I tell people all the time, sometimes it takes 2 of us to teach a presentation because I am not willing to stand in front of people and talk about a skill that I have not done that many times and the guy next to me has done many times. So it's easy for me to kick it over to that guy and let him explain something that he's done hundreds of times where I've done it maybe 5 times, right? And so that, I think, is what makes the credibility of the program. I'll never forget the time that I got grilled at an instructor social event by a big city fireman about how to force a door. And I stood tall to it, to the point where the guy was like, all right, man, you know your shit. And you know what? I respect that. And sometimes, you know, I can look at it both ways, right? Sometimes we need to do that to people to be like, yo, what are you really teaching these people? What do you really know? And see how they react to it, to just maybe showing up and clamming up over it, and maybe I'm not fit for it. I don't know if I'm rambling, but I hope that makes sense a little bit. You know, sometimes there's somebody who could teach somebody something, but we got to figure out who those people are.
Well, and the other way too is you have to learn. I think one of the most dynamic things about teaching and instructing is knowing how to connect. And like RJ is not going to connect with everyone. Jeremy Donch is not going to connect with everyone. So if you have somebody else available in your cadre that's there to help you teach or is teaching on the same level, they might be able to reach somebody differently than you can. And it truly is like when you teach and instruct, or when you speak, for me, when I speak and do my class, I'm doing it tomorrow night down in Pennsylvania, right? And then Monday night, I'm doing it up in New York. And like my program, I get super animated. I'm loud and I'm emotional. And it was sidebar, I did a keynote for the Little Rock, Arkansas Fire Department graduation for their probate class. They asked me to do the keynote
that's
there,
cool.
which was cool, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I did the keynote, and I get done speaking like 10, 15 minutes. I go to sit back down and have a Superior Court judge from Arkansas sitting next to me in the, in the row of like, dignitaries or whatever, right? And she's sitting there, and I sit back down, and she looks at me and goes, "Boy," she goes, "you're emotional when you speak." And I go, "I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, right? Like,
passion.
I want to make sure that my audience gets the most out of me. And if
Facts.
that means that I need to be super passionate, if that means I have to let emotion spill over, we need to do that. I value when somebody gives me an opportunity to speak or somebody gives me an opportunity to present, I want to give them everything that I can. And that requires an all-in attitude, but that's how you know that you're going to do your very best to connect with the audience that's there. We have an obligation to do that as an instructor.
100%. And the thing of it is, man, and you're right. There's got to be a way to connect to people, man. And I think when you start doing this for quite some time, you find all of these many different ways to connect to people. And not only that, you surround yourself with other people who know how to connect. I've learned how to connect to people from being around other instructors. And so, you know what I mean? Like, that's just one of those things where when you're passionate about something, I can hardly put any words on a slide. I can just put a picture up and talk about the picture because I'm passionate about it. I have experience in it. And when you're truthful, right, and your ability to do something, that will speak for itself more than anything else you can say about yourself. And so, like, I think that's huge, man. And I don't want people to be afraid to say I'm ready to teach, but I just want people to think about all of these things before you say I'm ready to teach. It's
and
hard.
the other thing too, RJ, right? To back up what you were saying, also, I wrote down, I just made some notes, but levels of instructing. So, like, it's okay if you are a 4-year guy. There is a place for you in teaching, and there's a place for you in 35-year career to teach, and there's different levels of things to teach and different opportunities, and we have your standard to advanced techniques, right? All these different things, right? However you want to package it. But I think that's where that self-awareness really comes in line, right? Is like understanding where you are in your career and ability and where you can teach up to and then not.
And that's the biggest thing.
That's even just on the company level. I'm not even talking about like at a fire academy or speaking nationally. Let's just talk about your homegrown guys that are in the back parking lot cutting up a car.
Yep.
Or stretching lines on a drill night or a training night in a volunteer house. If you're willing to step up and teach, know that what you're teaching needs to fall in line with what your experience is. And you got to stay in line and in step with what you truly know. Because if you're teaching based on theory, you're setting people up for failure. People are looking at you as, say, a senior guy or an officer in your volunteer firehouse, and they're looking at you like, okay, I don't know, but this guy should because he's been here a while.
Sure.
Then if you're going to teach and train and share your insights and knowledge, you better know your lane and you better know what you can teach up to and then what you can't teach.
100%, man. And that's, I think, with some of the fire service struggles with people not knowing where to stop. Because, you can get somebody who's experienced in something. I mean, look at us, for example, right? How many of us go sit in each other's classes, right? And how many of us go sit in each other's classes not only to support our friends who are instructing, but to also learn something from that person who's teaching, right? And the last thing you want to do is sit in somebody's class and be like, "Yo, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, this is not accurate." You know what I mean? And so that I never want to put yourself in that predicament. I tell people all the time, man, you can't replace experience. Experience comes over
Experience
time.
matters.
Yeah,
that's it.
But it does matter.
Experience matters.
It does.
It matters. 100% it matters.
Mm-hmm.
But experience comes in a lot of different shapes and forms. And so I think that's where we have to double down on self-awareness, and you have to be cognizant of what you know and what you don't know.
Yeah.
And, I've seen people pick up different disciplines in the fire service and try to teach it. And I go, I know where this guy's from.
Right.
He He's never, if he's been on one, maybe two of these calls, like in his career, that's a lot. And he's out there teaching this. I struggle with that.
So
right?
so do I. So do I. And it's hard, man, because you don't want to diminish the work of the person who's trying to do that, and they're trying to do the right thing. But it is hard, man, and I
don't know. I don't know if they're trying to do. It sounds to me like
or maybe not. Okay, maybe not everybody has ill intentions, right? Some people are trying, and I also try to look. You know me, man. I try to look at it from every angle, right?
I get
Whereas
it.
sometimes you might be the only person in your department, even if it is small town USA, who's trying to make the department better because nobody else.
That.
You know
totally
what I mean?
Get it.
And
but
so
then find the resources to help support what you want to talk about. Right.
Bingo.
There is so much opportunity out there. You could, in the volunteer firehouse, if there's something you want to tackle, say we have mid-rises going in and we're not great at stretching bundles, right? Like I know in my department, we rarely ever stretch bundles, right? Because but we're starting to get more mid-rises. We're starting to get some more 3- and 4-story walk-ups, right? And so on. So we're starting to see that pop up here. We need to start doing better at that. But in 30 years, maybe have stretched an extended bundle once or twice, to be honest with you, right? We're a pre-connect department, or we pull off the back and cut it at what we need if it's a longer stretch. But we're not stretching up 3-4-story stairwells. So we need to start looking at that training aspect and say, you know what, we should probably start getting some more hands-on on extending our bundles, stretching in stairwells. But we can walk through it as a department and have conversation with each other like, listen, brother, I haven't, I'm not the guy, but at least we can put hose in the stairwell and talk about it.
Yeah.
But what we can do is go back and know those people that are experts, quote unquote, if you're not watching, you're listening, quote, air quotes, experts in this. Let's digest their content. That's where opportunity comes in. We can watch a YouTube video from a vetted instructor.
Yeah.
We can read up on these things because we can source that information more than ever. And then what we can also do, if we can afford it, is maybe bring in an outside instructor to help us work on stretching up multiple stairwells.
Big time.
Right?
But you can't take that and then flip it and say, I've been doing this for a very long time and I know how to stretch bundles. And that's where sometimes we fall short in the fire service, where we have people doing that, right? And it's easy because, the availability to look somebody up now is super easy, right? And then you've come to find out, well, this person works at a firehouse or in a department of 20 people and their firehouse is on a golf course. And so, like, how...
Oh, sounds so nice.
How many fires are they really going to have the experience to really teach how to stretch these lines or force these doors or cut these gates? You know what I mean? So, like, it makes it harder for us who are actually doing the right thing. You know what I mean?
That's where that awareness comes in.
Yes.
And that's on the company level. I'm not even talking about taking it nationally. I'm just talking about don't blow smoke because you're the most senior guy in your firehouse and pretend that you know. If you don't know, you don't know.
Say you don't know. Say you don't know.
Say you don't know, and then go find the resources to help you know.
I think people get more respect for that. And I try to tell guys that all the time, man. And that's why one of the things I loved about Trevor and why we brought Trevor on is Trevor was that guy. I mean, Trevor has more time on now, but he was that guy who wouldn't make something that didn't exist. He would tell you, hey man, I don't have the experience in that, and I'm still learning myself. But I do have experience in this area, and I do this part every day, and I do this part, and I can tell you all of the mistakes I made doing this part, and this is what I'm here to share. I think when you can stand in front of that and you make yourself a much better leader, not just an instructor, a much better leader by saying, hey man, I don't know that. And especially if you're leading a crew. If you're leading a crew where you can say, hey, guys, I don't know that, but let's go learn this together. Let's all go to a conference together as a shift, and we go and learn this stuff together and have a good time, meet people, do that kind of stuff. Now it makes you a better leader amongst your shift in the firehouse.
But I do want to caution this too, though, just on the flip side, is if you're in a position that you're supposed to know, you better fucking know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you have the ability to know, right? Yes. There's so many resources at our disposal now where we can read something, we can go learn something. And we talked about the whole conference thing earlier on, but there's so many abilities to be good at your job. There's no excuse.
The one thing I love that I get to do with National Fire Radio is put people together. So I have a lot of people reach out and they have questions or an idea, and I'm like, you should talk to so and so, or let me connect you with this guy. I love making connections, right? That's my whole Bridging the Gap program. That's what it is. It's bridging people together, and I absolutely love doing that. And with the Rolodex that I have, and for the younger people listening to this, a Rolodex used to sit on your desk.
Yeah.
And it was a wheel, and it had paper cards in it with
in it,
people's
yep.
names, phone numbers, and information on them. Rolodex. Now it's in our phone, right? It's
That's
our
crazy. You had
contact
to
list,
explain what a Rolodex
right?
is.
Yeah, think about it, right? But ultimately, right? Ultimately, like my contact list is amazing, and I love putting people together, and that is how we move forward, and that's how we can excel and make this job great. Is by putting people together. There are people out there that know more than you, I promise. So go find them. And if you don't know who they are, ask someone else. Somebody knows somebody that knows more than you. I promise you that.
And you know what, man? We talked about this last year when we were talking about the whole idea behind the conference. And the whole idea behind the Key City Fire Conference was to take those people who also may have just not had an opportunity to be boosted up onto a platform. And so we decided to make Frederick be our own national platform. Anytime we're planning the second conference for 2025. And if you look at the roster we had last year and what's going to be the roster for next year, there is still people that you have never heard of mixed in with people you have heard of. And so sometimes people just need that opportunity to get that boost to be able to have a platform to share their experiences that they may have never had before. So, I don't want to discourage people, but I do want people to have the understanding of what you need to have and be willing to have in order to step out into the world of instruction, because there is a special place for people who are trying to do good and teaching the fire service based off of experience, based off of humility, based off of being able to highlight their mistakes. Those are people that we all want to learn from. And that might be just people who have never had the opportunity to have a platform to do it. Whereas some people are just trying to do it to say that I want to be that guy or boost their ego or whatever. And those are the people that we don't like. Those are the people that you and I are like, get out of here, man. This is you're messing up what we're actually trying to do.
We're always going to have that. Just like in the firehouse, we're always going to have the slug,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What I would caution though, or no, what I would just say about that is we see you.
Yeah.
And it's when you are in it for the wrong reasons, people know, and it comes through, and you present yourself that way, and people know very quickly who you are and what you stand for. And because of that, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
You're not. You can fool your loser friends, like we do. I was there. I was that guy that was the cool loser at one time, right? Like, totally get it. You can fool people, but over time, the people that matter, they'll see right through your shell game, bro.
Yeah.
All day long.
That's real, man. And I'm glad you said that, because this is the place where people listen to how to be, how to move, and what to think. And sometimes maybe we don't do a good enough job putting that out there to the fire service. But and this goes down a whole another rabbit hole of vetting. But yeah, man, that's you said it very well, because people need to be able to understand, like, hey, man, not everybody out here has the best intentions, and not everybody out here has the experience to back up what they're saying. So you got to do your due diligence to sift through these people. So you explained that very well. Good, thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's very nice. So what's next, man? Let's cook into your life. Anything else? Anything you want to talk about? Another? We got a little bit of time left. I love this. This is morning coffee. Have you even been drinking your coffee over there?
I haven't
seen that mug hit your lips yet, man.
Oh my God! It's because you've been running your jibs, and every time you look down to write something, I have a sip.
Nice. Nice.
No, man. I'm very. I don't know, man. I'm in a good place. I just enjoy what I get to do, and enjoy the people I get to do it with, and I'd be remiss, man, if I didn't actually have an opportunity to just say thank you to the guys from Capital who bring all of these things that we just talked about. Guys who, and like I said, from the 4-year guy all the way to the retired guy, who brings something to the table that I get to be a part of every day. And not only every day, but every day we go out to teach and do different things for different people and organizations for the right reasons. We just came back from the 5th annual Jerry Fickus Memorial Training Weekend in Wilmington, which honors the 3 line of duty deaths in Wilmington: Jerry Fickus, Ardith Hope, and Christopher Leach. And to think that we've been able to honor these people for 5 years through training, and with guys from Capital who are willing to go and do this event and not take a dollar for it, because we're put back into their families and into the departments to do more training. We've been doing this for 5 years. So to be able to say that these are things that we get to be a part of is, for me, is just an experience, man. And it's none of, I can't explain it, that I get to be around it. And now, we're going on the 2nd year for the Key City Fire Conference, which is cool. To be able to say this is now something that wasn't a one-hit wonder, but something that we want to put into our area for more people to come through the department and learn forever. If I can have it exactly how I want it, I want to get this committee to actually make a proclamation so that this conference lives in this department long after I'm gone, and in this area. You know what I mean? So I'm invested in the fire service. I'm invested in people wanting to learn. I'm invested in the people, and that's my mission, man. And so it's not an easy one, but it's one that I'm willing to stand on the forefront and take for the betterment of the job and us.
Well, it shows, and that's why I think I enjoy talking with you so much. And like I said, we don't talk every day, but when we do get caught up, it's always an enjoyable conversation. And we get pulled in so many different ways, and we're always so busy and so on. But you have to find those 5 minutes that I mentioned early on in this episode. You got to find those 5 minutes to make a phone call or send a text, communicate, touch base with somebody you haven't talked to in a while. It goes a very, very long way. And I value it more than you know, and I value our friendship, man. Appreciate you.
Oh man, I appreciate you too, and I know what you're about to say, but let me just say it anyway. Don't interrupt me, all right? Thank you for what you continue to do to help the fire service. Thank you for your honesty. I think today we spit out some honest stuff about most importantly being a fire service leader, being a fire service instructor, and like sometimes people don't want to hear that. Sometimes people don't want to hear the honesty, but thank you for always having a platform where you can put the honest words out there. Sometimes your platform are things that maybe some of us are not even comfortable saying. But sometimes it's the things that people need to hear. Maybe I might be one of them. Sometimes I'm just not comfortable saying it, but I might agree with it, but I'm just not comfortable saying it. Thank you for having that platform for the American Fire Service to
I'll be the guy that just says it. No problem.
And I too appreciate our friendship, man. And I appreciate what you do.
You know what? I think we're at a place where now more than ever, authenticity matters. We have, I watch my kids scroll TikTok and Snap and, 16 and 17-year-old girls. And, it is, it's hard to explain to them that what they're seeing is embellished or not really reality, right? In a lot of these social media channels. And so I just took it upon myself that I have to be real. And don't get me wrong, bro. I got faults. And don't get me wrong. Like, there's things in life I don't do perfectly. You could ask my wife and kids. They'll tell you that. You could ask people that I've run businesses with. They'll tell you that. You could ask the guys in my firehouse. There's things that I don't do well that I continually work on. Or there's things that I've done wrong in my life. I've made a lot of errors in my life, and I've done a lot of good in my life. And at the end of the day, I have to be able to think that I did more positive than negative. And in getting back to my kids, I watch what they're watching, and I watch who influences them. And to be honest with you, like, we need people out there that I think are true and transparent. And so for me, that's what this platform will always be. And there's tons of haters. There's a lot of people that think I'm a piece of shit. There's a lot of people that don't agree with things I say. And there's a lot of people that think I'm a fraud. That's fine too. I don't care, but what you get with me is what you get. I think that's the only way we should be. And I don't think that we should be hiding behind platforms. I think people need to put their names and put their who they are behind what they do.
100%.
I think that's ownership, and that's when you go all in. I don't care what your platform is. I don't care what your message is. It could be negative or it could be positive. I think you should own it.
Absolutely. And like I said, man, doctors hang out with doctors, lawyers hang out with lawyers, and true leaders hang out with other true leaders.
I appreciate
That's
that,
what
brother.
it is.
RJ, thank you, man. I appreciate you very much. Capital Fire Training on social media, correct?
Yeah, Capital Fire Training. We have a website where you can see all of our programs, all of our instructors, and talking about the instructor thing like we did. It's important that you can read up on somebody. You can see where they're from, what their time is, and experience level. One of the things that I stood by from day one is putting out who we are to the people, where you can see who we are, read up on who we are. So we've grown from, the 7 people that we had to the 19 people that we do have, who range from all over, different experience levels, different backgrounds, different things to bring to the table. So absolutely. Thank you, bro.
Awesome. You got it, man. I appreciate you being here as always.
Yeah, man.
Hang out. I'm going to sign off and come right back to you, okay?
All right, brother.
Good. Thank you. Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Like I say at the end of every episode, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it. Because when we're talking about the job, we're making the job better. I'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.